This episode is brought to you by Trailer Park Yard Games, where over 28 games are delivered directly to your party. We park the trailer, you party.
I'll start off by saying it took me probably at least 10 to 12 years before I actually bought a donut on duty, just because I couldn't bring myself to be that guy. And I think a lot of officers
now you
are the
can.
same.
Wearing your shirt and pants.
Well, and what did we serve you this morning for the podcast?
Donuts,
Oh, yeah, that's
yes,
which
sure.
I like donuts. I think every cop likes donuts, but they just don't like to admit it.
Every person likes
I was on midnights and I went into, I think QT finally was like, I've had enough, I'm getting a donut. So I bought a donut. But one night I was on midnights.
Let's have a chat, talk this and that with BB and Jaisy.
All right, guys. Hello. Welcome to the PB and Jaisy podcast. My name is Sarah Paget. The P is Paget, the PB and Jaisy show. To my left is...
I'm Bill Stedham. I'm the B in the PB and Jaisy show, the lucky B sandwiched between two beautiful women.
But you're on the outside.
Yeah.
I am, but it's a weird sandwich.
You're like the white bread.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay, yeah.
And then to my right...
I'm Jaisy. I am the Jaisy jelly to the sandwich. It's like Daisy, but with a J.
And I think you always have to spell it that way.
Yes.
And when I introduce you, that's how I say it.
I have to spell it that way because that is legally how it is spelled.
Perfect. Today, and I am so privileged and honored to introduce our guest. I'm just going to kind of give you a highlight of his life. He's had some highlights. One is being my cousin. Second one, he's one of my best friends for now. He's my hiking buddy. Yeah, he's my hiking buddy. He was the best man in our wedding, probably one of the biggest highlights of his life. And then his most recent achievement is sitting in the very room with us recording this podcast. Yes.
Did you ever think that your life would come to this? Like it's
No, I'm very
best
honored.
day. Write it down. Put it in your scrapbook.
So I must say, Brian, you have led a really, really great life so far. But all jokes aside, this is Brian Bledsoe. And if you want to give us your title, please, how would you introduce yourself? I'm Brian, and
I'm Brian, and I am Brian.
What do you do?
I'm a detective for the Mansfield Police Department.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
And is that what you've always done?
For the department, no. I've done many things, but yeah, I've been a detective for 3.5 years now. I started in patrol, which is where pretty much everyone starts, and yeah, worked my way up to where I am now.
And so now, instead of wearing the uniform, what do you wear?
Most days is a shirt and tie. Which,
No pants.
yeah, no. Mm-mm.
That's what happens when you work
We
from
sit
home.
at a desk, so
It's fine.
yeah.
I'm glad you put pants on today.
The first job is to find your pants.
Yes. That's where the detective work really comes in.
So when did you, because I feel like law enforcement is such a service, and lately, which we'll talk about this too, but lately it's been maybe kind of a thankless job. When did you know that you wanted to go into law enforcement?
I don't know, from as long as I can remember when I was a little kid, that's just what I wanted to do. And I don't know if there was something as a kid that I watched on TV, or because I didn't have any law enforcement family. There wasn't anybody that I looked up to, like as an uncle or anything like that. So I must have been watching the Andy Griffith Show or something. I don't know.
I love the Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah.
So since you mentioned Andy Griffin, do they let you carry bullets, or do you have to keep them in your
Yeah, no,
your
you still
shirt?
get one in the pocket.
One in the pocket?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it. So
Okay.
haven't had to use it yet. So
Well, that's
thank
a good
goodness.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, and then Bill, you've got some military law enforcement background, right?
I do. I was in did some law enforcement work for about 18 years till I retired from the Air Force. So that is correct.
And so how does that differ from, what we consider, normal police activity?
Well, in the Air Force or in any part of the federal government, we're enforcing the U.S. code, where local law enforcement's not enforcing the U.S. code. They're enforcing the local laws and ordinances and the state laws of Texas. We have no jurisdiction outside of the federal land, and that's typically the biggest difference. So when we would go to investigate, because I had a similar position as a detective, we didn't call ourselves detectives, we called ourselves special agents, but yeah, because we were
Special Agent Stedham, okay.
we were special, but
You are still special.
You're very
yeah,
special.
very very special. My wife tells me that every single day.
Do you make her call you Special Agent Bill Stedham?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't. No,
You
that would be bad. But I always dreamed of being in law enforcement. In fact, when I retired, I wanted to get into law enforcement. But due to the times that I retired in Dallas, Texas, there was no way that a white guy from California was going to get hired as a police officer in Dallas, Texas. It just was not happening back in the 90s.
Was it because you were white, or was it because you were from California?
Well,
Yes.
I
It's
think
both those things.
it probably had more to do with being from California, but back then they had made some bad hiring decisions in the past, maybe some that weren't considered equal, so they were trying to balance it out, and they were trying, their force probably didn't look like the community, and they were trying to make their force look more like the community, be more representative, and that was a good thing. I think they went too far at that point in time, because there was probably 5 or 6 years that there was nobody with my background that was going to get into
I feel
law
really
enforcement.
bad for you being an older, white, privileged man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really
Poor
do.
guy.
Where did privilege come into?
But you fell into an okay position.
Yes. And so
Yeah.
now he's a manager at a real estate office, which is much more dangerous.
And he is on this podcast with PB and JC podcast, which is also equally as dangerous.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Yes.
But this is all about Brian today,
Yes.
not
How
about
do you?
Bill.
But in that turn, how do you feel about? Because I mean, I live in Mansfield, and I feel like the diversity of a lot of the police officers and people that work for our city is very obvious in what I see.
Yeah, I think we're a very diverse department. I think we've done a good job at doing that. And I mean, ultimately, we're trying to hire the best person for the job. And in my eyes, it shouldn't have anything to do with diversity, black, white, Hispanic. We want good people doing the job,
Awesome. Awesome.
That's the
Yeah.
correct thing.
So, Jaisy, let me ask you this, and you didn't know I was going to ask you this,
Uh-oh.
but have you ever been pulled over? Like, I feel like you would never do anything wrong.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the first time I was ever pulled over, it was when I first started driving, and it was so nerve-wracking. And the reason why I was pulled over was not my fault. If my brother
it
Jensen is
wasn't.
watching, it was all your fault that I got I didn't get
You
arrested.
got arrested?
Whoa.
I didn't get arrested. I almost said I did not get arrested, but I got pulled over. I was leaving my high school, and the car that I was driving used to be my brother's. He only had it for like maybe a year, and then he got a new car, so then I got his car. When he had it, he got the darkest tint that was illegal.
yeah.
Like, he might as well have just gone and gotten spray
Like
paint
spray
and
paint.
spray painted the windows. So as soon as and it was so bad where if I drove at night, I would have to drive with the windows down because
you could see.
I couldn't see out. And so as soon as I pull out of the parking lot, this police officer pulls me over. And at first he was super nice, but then I was so nervous and I start crying and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like,
Did it
I
work?
don't want to get arrested. Like, I promise, like, it's not even my car. Like, but it was a Lexus, and it was like a newer Lexus. It was like only a year old. And so he was like, I'm sure you'll be fine. And I was like, oh, damn. Then I got angry and was just like, all right, whatever, just write me the ticket. I don't even care. I'm just gonna have, Daddy, can you help me?
So Brian, and that just brings up, I'm sure working in the community, you grew up here. Like, do you pull over people you know? Like, how do you handle back when you were in patrol?
I did, yeah, and it was more in the beginning years. But Mansfield's gotten so big, it was few and far between before But yeah, I would, and depending on what they did, you cut them breaks where you can, which I feel like I did for anyone. You know, you really had to talk yourself into a ticket with me. That was probably the one thing I did not like about the job, is I hated writing people
Writing
tickets.
tickets.
I liked communicating with people, having that conversation more about what happened and what they did more than writing them the ticket. I think a lot of times just that conversation fixed the problem.
Right.
Some people needed them, but yeah.
Because for me, like, even just seeing a police officer, and not that I'm scared of them in a way like they were going to hurt me, but I was always so respectful of my that authority. And I can remember being in the car, and my brother would be like, "There's a police officer. Sit up straight. Don't make eye contact. Tuck your shirt." And like, he was just like so, and that's how we've always been.
Oh, yeah.
I think people don't realize we feel that way too. When I'm in my personal car driving down the road and I might be going a little too fast and I see that trooper or somebody sitting, I'm like, whoa, I get the same feeling. I've
That's
been
so
pulled over
surprising.
as a police officer, and when I get pulled over, I know I'm not going to get hurt, but I still have the same anxiety that everyone else, maybe not quite as much, but I still feel that nervousness, that, like
Right.
how's this going to be? How's this going to go? Am I going to get a ticket? Because
So answer that question. Have you ever had a ticket?
I had several before I became a police
Oh,
officer.
but
Yes.
since you became a police officer,
They wiped the slate clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they
Since
just
I've been a
heavily-
police officer, I've been very lucky. I haven't done anything too bad, but
Too bad.
I have been pulled over and I have been, given warnings. But I feel like I gave just as many warnings.
Right. So it's kind of karma.
Yeah.
I got pulled over not too long ago. Well, it was 7-8 years ago, going up to Tollway to play golf. And I was late for a tee time. And all the cars were going 85 to 95 on the tollway, so I did the same thing. We must have been in a line of about 15 cars. And I was going all the way up Frisco. And all of a sudden, there's a trooper behind me.
You felt singled out.
Because he was a
No.
white, privileged man.
I did ask him how he chose me. No, I was very, very, very respectful, and thought, well, maybe I could talk myself out of the ticket by using humor. So he said, why are you going so fast? I said, I'm late for my tea time. That did not work.
Oh, no. Maybe he thought you meant like you were going to go sip tea.
Yes.
And he's like, that's
No,
not important.
No, he knew. He wrote a ticket. The worst part of that ticket was not getting it. It was having to go home and explain it to Ann. Because now I've got a $330 ticket that I have to pay, which could have been worse.
But Ann had to pay, really.
Yeah.
Well, and y'all probably heard me mention before, Ann's his wife, and she was on the podcast. She's kind of scary.
She is.
I think Bill's pretty scared of her, like probably more than the police.
Yeah.
Well, anytime she gets a 5-gallon bucket and a hammer, I get really, really concerned.
She grew up on a farm, and she knows how to take care of
Yeah,
animals.
she knows how to make things disappear.
They've never had to go to the vet. Just a bucket of water. Okay, so I don't know how this got so bad. So I won't ask you specifics about being in trouble, but let's talk a little bit about your career over. So how long have you been in law enforcement? I'll start there.
16 and a half years.
Okay.
And started with Mansfield in 2005.
Okay, and you've
That
always
was-
worked for Mansfield.
Yeah, that was my first police job.
Okay.
So
Great.
And then what do you have to do to go into law enforcement? I mean, I know there's tons of college, and then after that, is there?
Well, it depends on what department you go work for. Some require degrees, college degrees. Some require a certain amount of hours.
Okay.
I don't believe Mansfield requires college hours. If they do, it's very minimum. But used to, you would have to put yourself through the academy, or you got hired by a department that had their own academy, like Dallas. When I got hired, Mansfield didn't put people through the academy, pay them, and all of that. Now they do that. So if you're wanting to be a police officer now and you want to work for Mansfield, you don't have to be already certified through an academy. You can apply, and then Mansfield will send you to the academy. They'll pay you while you're there,
Okay.
pay for the academy, put you through, and then you'll start working or start training. It's a process. It takes from time you start the academy till the time you're out on patrol by yourself. You're probably looking at a year to year and a half.
Oh wow.
What does the academy look like? What different? Are there different
it's
sections
It's
to
like
it?
brown bricks, and I'm just kidding.
What is there separate? Like do they have special tactics for like de-escalation or what to look? What is?
Sure, yeah. I mean, they have many classes throughout that, and de-escalation is one. That's one that's real big right now that even we're getting yearly training on, just for some people keeping up how they communicate with people. And communication is huge, especially when it comes with dealing with people in crisis on the street. Some people may think that you have to be this big, tough, cop.
Right.
To be able to handle that, and that's not necessarily the case. You do more work with your mouth, how you talk to people and treat them. It carries a lot of weight, on the street,
Sure.
and will keep you from getting hurt and other people from getting hurt. And so they do touch with that in the academy, but they do it all defensive tactics. Obviously the law. They go through a lot of the law, and
And you
a lot
have-
of it you don't necessarily remember or
Well, and
use.
you have to do that's like a real estate test too. But you don't have to do. Do you have to do a lie detector test still? Like you go in front of a polygrapher and test.
Most departments would, they have you take a polygraph exam.
Like what do they? What would they ask you, or what are they looking for when they do that?
They're looking for people that are not trustworthy, people that are going to lie.
Okay.
And we've seen that a lot where people come in and they'll lie about the stupidest thing that
Yeah.
you really have no reason to lie about. But if you're going to lie about something like that, then what else
What
will you
else?
lie about?
Yeah.
So we don't. It's not the job for you, because you can't. You can't be a liar in that profession. You have to, even when you make a mistake, you have to be able to stand up and say, "I messed up. It is what it is," which will get you out of trouble.
What's crazy when people start lying and start not telling the truth about things. And that usually leads to bigger issues.
Oh yeah.
And bigger lies and
Bigger lies, and then they screw up the lies they started with, and it just keeps on
Forget
rolling.
what you lied about initially, and
It's just
Yeah,
too
snowballs.
we've
Yeah.
had people who have lied about something, and we're like, if you just told the truth, we still would have hired you.
So it's like
It
when you
wasn't
get-
that big of a deal, but in their mind it was.
There
It's like
was-
when you get pulled over and they say, "How many beers did you have?" If you say
Two. Always two.
you're lying. But if you were to say 4, you're probably okay. Unless you're Jaisy and you're 105 pounds. 4 is
On a good
probably
day.
too many.
Try.
Sorry, was that too heavy?
Trying.
I'm sorry, 95 pounds. Is that better?
That's
That's like my right thigh.
I wonder why Tom was pointing down when you did that. I'm looking around going, what are we looking
I
at?
was like aiming really low, and then that wasn't even
All
low
of a sudden,
enough.
that's not low enough. Tom's like, you're insulting my wife.
No, I wish.
I was talking about like when you wear your combat boots and
When I was
like-
pregnant.
Yeah, when you were pregnant. Oh my God. Okay.
I do have a question though. So one thing, I don't know if everybody's parents did this, when they would just make up laws. I remember when I was a kid, and I honestly thought that this was a real thing. But if we were ever driving at night, like let's say we stopped and picked up McDonald's, and we would turn on the light in the car and be eating our sandwich or something in the back, my parents would be like, "Turn off the light. The police can pull us over because you're not supposed to drive with the lights on." Is that real?
I don't think so. I mean,
Does that make? Is that
could be- that's a dad law.
Is that breaking the law?
It could be a distracted driver, because they're distracted by something.
I never
maybe.
understood that though, 'cause my
distracted
dad
by
would say,
McDonald's.
"Turn the light off. I can't see." What is that? That makes no sense.
Well, realize back when your dad was driving, because he's close to my age, the cars didn't have the technology they had today. And he probably couldn't see. Today, you've got a camera in all your mirrors.
True.
Back then, they actually had a mirror. Glass, and you had to look through, and it was
We
dirty.
know what a mirror is, Bill.
Well, I don't know,
I mean, like the selfie camera?
Yeah.
Today, Bill explains inanimate objects.
There you go.
This is a cup.
This is a cup.
Okay, so also I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to do a shout out to your wife, Chelsea. She recently had a birthday. I won't say how old. At least 21, we'll say that. I'm bad at guessing, so I'm not going to do that. But she was a teacher. She's a librarian now, right? Also
correct.
for Mansfield. So walk us through that, because those are two very prominent roles in the community. So, is that, and schedule-wise and stuff like that, how do y'all make that work with a family? And then, we'll even throw COVID in the mix. Like, how is that?
I mean,
guys?
I wouldn't say it's been hard. I think it's worked well, both being public servants. But she does a really good job with her school and managing that and balancing that. We've just worked well with the kids and everything. And I mean, she went and got her master's degree. That was a little rough because she had to spend a lot of extra time to do that. But luckily, when that started, I had moved into my detective role, so I had a little bit normal schedule at that point.
Gotcha.
But back when I worked, midnights, evenings, that's when it was a lot harder to manage.
For
not.
sure.
Do you feel like any of the tactics that you learned, such as de-escalation, has helped within your marriage?
Oh yeah, and definitely, yeah.
What about with your kids? Because my husband used to be a wrestler, and I feel like those things really came into not in their marriage too, but with the kids.
Oh my goodness.
Just kidding. With the kids, because have you ever tried to put a onesie on a squirming child? It's very difficult, but he would just be able to
Put him in a chokehold.
pin them in some way, be able to get it on where I just wouldn't even fiddle with that stuff.
Yeah,
Has that helped with the kids?
I don't think so. No, I don't know. Maybe
He knows how to body
Maybe I just
slam.
didn't realize it.
Are they
yeah.
scared of you more because you got a gun?
No, I wish, but no, they're not.
So do you teach your kids more about, is law enforcement something that you guys talk about, and respecting police and things is that something y'all
sure.
talk about in the household?
Absolutely, yeah. Nowadays, it's unfortunately we talk about how we don't necessarily need to let everyone know what I do because I'm afraid, especially with my son and where he's getting older. A lot of people don't like the police, and I don't want that taken out on him,
Gotcha.
in school and things like that. So we have that discussion now, which I hate to have, but maybe not say what I do just for their
So
protection.
you're just going to make something up that you do, or what are you going to call it?
I work for the Parks Department.
He's a pet
City of
detective.
Mansfield.
Pet
For the
detective.
city.
My dad's
I work for the city.
He's a dancer.
My dad is Ace Ventura, pet detective.
There you go.
When I was growing up, we were taught to respect every adult. Didn't matter what they
Yes,
did. And
for
and
sure.
if I didn't say yes sir or yes ma'am, I went flying across the room.
Yeah.
Now they would call that child abuse, but back then they just called it discipline. And we didn't have the problems we had today because it didn't matter who they were, what they had done. You said, if you were a child, yes sir or yes ma'am to everybody. And you always respected everybody. Today, that's kind of went out the window.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
talked about that within our planning meeting about, I know that now since you're a detective, you wear, regular clothes, but wearing a uniform versus not wearing a uniform to like go to the grocery store and things like that, that's probably something that people in law enforcement now have to think about, where if I'm at the grocery store and I see a police officer, I'm like, oh, I respect them, I probably let them go ahead of me in line or something. And it's sad to think that that's not the way that
Not
they're
always the
perceived all the
case.
time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't want to wear, a lot of times if I'm going to the store, I'm taking all that stuff off. I'm not wearing that. But you'd be amazed at how many people don't look at me as a police officer now when we're dealing with people, or I go talk to people in a patrol car. I'm in my shirt, tie, and pants, and I have a badge, a gun, everything on.
Right.
And a patrol car will pull up and a uniformed officer get out, and it's like,
It's totally
whoa.
different.
It
So
changes.
the police just showed up. I don't want to talk to them.
Right.
I'm standing there going, you've been talking to me for 10 minutes. Like, I'm
But
the
it's
same
different.
thing.
Yeah.
But they don't associate that uniform as something totally different to people. It's amazing.
For sure. I think it changes the way, though, that you process information and the way you see other people. Is anytime someone's, because even wearing a suit versus wearing a tracksuit. I don't know if people wear tracksuits, but you know what I mean.
Velour?
Like, yeah, like anytime you're showing up somewhere, people judge on the way you look.
Yeah.
I think people who've had a bad experience with police, it's typically a uniformed officer, so they associate that with their bad experience.
Right. Well, and I think too, like social media in general, like if you've never ever even had an encounter with the police, but you've seen some video or something somewhere, now all of a sudden you have
You're
that
coming
as
in with
part of
fear.
your story when it's
Yeah.
not even your story.
Well, and I just want to step in on the bad encounter. It's not that the police did something to create the bad encounter. It's that the individual did something to cause the encounter.
Well,
You
and
know?
in some cases, I think police officers, they're just like anything else. There's good and bad.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, but that's a very small
Small.
percentage. I mean, minuscule percentage of the people who do police work that step out of line.
I
You know,
agree.
And I think what Bill's saying is even the bad ones who have made bad decisions, the officers that got into a situation where they made a bad decision, it still wouldn't have happened if the other person hadn't have caused the interaction to begin. I don't know of many that just go out and seek officers that
Right.
seek that problem. It's usually they have to be there for some reason, and for
Right.
what
And then
then
things take
then the
over.
bad decision, then something happens to where they don't know how to handle it. Maybe something's going on in their life that you just don't know.
There's a
You
lot
know,
of
that officer
emotions,
could be
right?
dealing with, could have just come from a call, of a child, that died or something, and they're
Right.
mentally, they may have something in their personal life going on, which is not an excuse. You shouldn't be working if that's the case.
Right.
But still, it doesn't take away the fact that we don't know what that officer has been through,
Right.
in the last hour.
It goes back to giving everybody grace because you have no idea what
Absolutely.
they're going
Yeah,
through.
that's
And
true with anyone.
doesn't mean that you don't have to deal with the situation, but I can only think of one case in North Texas where we had a police officer do something stupid that wasn't that he generated, and he was just writing tickets to write tickets to get
Numbers or
to
something.
get numbers, get overtime, and of course Dallas fired him. He was a Dallas officer and was in the news a year or two ago, and he deserved to get fired. He deserved whatever happens, but police don't go out there and create problems.
Yeah. What are conversations that, I as a parent, anyone listening that as a parent, or even just adults in general, that conversations we should maybe have with our kids, or that you wish we knew?
I guess that officers they're human. They're going through the same things that you go through. They're going through the same stress, struggles in their personal life and on the job. So it goes back to grace. You have to understand that people are going to make mistakes. It's how they handle those mistakes that means more. Just know that officer is not out there to hurt you. They're not, they're there to do a job, but most of them, 99% of them want to help you.
Right.
It's not that, what they're doing is not there to hurt you, even though it may feel like it, at times, but they're honestly not there.
There's one thing I think parents can do, and that is not threaten your children with the police.
Oh,
Yeah.
Then that embodies fear of the police.
If you don't
instead of-
behave, I'm going to call the police on you, and they're going to come arrest you.
Just call Santa. Don't call.
Oh, yeah.
Police are used as the discipline a lot of times, and even for parents with their children. How many times when I worked days in the morning, school time, we get a call because a parent had a kid that didn't want to get up and go to school, and they want the police to come handle it. That's not our job.
That's funny.
But I mean, they do. They use the police to be the bad guy all the time, and maybe realize that the police don't have to be a bad guy all the time. They can be the good guy, and help in other areas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we have a little segment coming up. It's what we always do towards the end of our episode, but it is called
Tales from the Lockbox. I want to start off with this. I've got a good friend who will remain nameless that retired from one of the local police departments, and many years ago they were, as the tale is told to me, were responding to something, and they were trying to deal with a suspect who had done something wrong, and they were looking for the suspect who was obviously trying to evade them. And for whatever reason, this brilliant individual decided to lay down in the middle of a parking lot.
and this is the criminal you're talking about?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. And it was dark outside, so they're driving around looking, and of course when you're driving looking for somebody in a car, you're not looking at the ground. Bump, bump.
Oh no.
Earned a nickname because he ran the individual over. Bump, bump means we did it twice.
Whoopsies.
And he lived.
So
He
if
lived,
anyone,
he's fine.
if you're ever running from the cops, don't lay down right by their cars.
Well, certainly in the parking lot where they're going to drive.
Well, and Brian, do you have any funny stories you want to tell us? Maybe somebody pulled over or...
Yeah, I'll start off by saying it took me probably at least 10 to 12 years before I actually bought a donut on duty, just because I couldn't bring myself to be that guy. And I think a lot of officers
Now you
are the
can.
same.
Wearing your shirt and pants.
But-
Well, and what did we serve you this morning for the podcast?
Oh, yeah, that's-
yes, for
which
sure.
I like donuts. I think every cop likes donuts, but they just don't like to admit it.
Every person likes
I was on midnights and I went into, I think QT finally was like, I've had enough, I'm getting a donut. So I bought a donut. But one night I was on midnights and I pulled over a car for, I think it was speeding. And as I'm walking up to the window, and this young lady, she's probably in high school, late 18,
no, did she have really dark
17.
tint?
Yeah. As she rolls down the window, and as she rolls down the window, she's holding a box of Krispy Kreme donuts in her lap,
wow.
And immediately I thought it was funny, but I just said, "Hey, are you trying to bribe me?" And she started panicking, and she was like, "Oh my God!" She was like, "I didn't realize I was holding these donuts. I'm so sorry." No, but then she looked at me and goes, "But would you like one?"
So did she get a ticket?
And she did not, and I did not take a donut.
I was going to say, but did you get a donut?
Yeah,
I
I was
just
like,
drive
no.
around with donuts in my car.
Speaking of donuts, when you walked in here today, it took me a minute to recognize you, and I've known you for a number of years. You left like half your body outside the building. What happened?
Yeah.
Stopped eating donuts.
Yeah, I did. Really, I stopped eating sugar as much. So yeah, I'm working out and eating well, low carb, little to no sugar, and it's worked for me. I've lost quite a bit of weight.
You look great. You look great.
Thank you.
Sounds like you've leveled up.
Yes.
Yeah, you said you lost 70 pounds?
Yeah, about 75 since January.
Holy moly.
Wow.
That's like a Jaisy.
That's almost me.
You have lost a Jaisy.
Yeah.
2.5 years
goodness.
ago, I'm probably a little over 100 pounds lighter now than I was 2.5 years ago.
Well done. Well
Yeah.
done. That is a JC.
That's great.
I hate
On
you
that
so
note.
much.
Now we have a segment called Level Up. So the quote that I've got is, "The reason most people fail is because they give up what they want the reason why most people fail is because they give up what they want most for what they want right now. And that was said by Emmanuel Acho, who is the former linebacker. He is from Dallas, Texas, also.
Holla.
And I thought that was a really great quote because, a lot of times we lose sight of what we really want because of things that seem fun in the moment. So what I wanted to say was, if you've got something that you're working towards, remind yourself of it daily so you're not forgetting. Write it down on your mirror, write it down in your planner, and be like a racehorse with blinders on, and just don't let frivolous things get in the way of your dreams, and work towards them.
I like that.
That's what I got for you.
Thank you, Brian. That was really
Thank y'all.
good.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
He
Thank
was.
you.
I'm probably been telling on him. He was really nervous.
Yeah.
But I don't think you didn't seem nervous. You did good.
Well, all those donuts he ate before we came in.
It really calmed him down.
Yeah.
All that
The
sugar I
sugars.
haven't
All the
had.
sugar.
in a while.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tom. Tom is the man behind the camera. Thank y'all so much for listening. Be sure to follow us on all of our platforms. Check us out on pbjz.com. It'll take you to all the places you can listen to podcasts. That's it. We
Yeah.
out.
We out.
Just had a chat, talk this and that with PB and JC.